Hello everyone, my name is Thor and welcome back to Anthropology. Thank you for joining me in today's video. I hope you are all doing well. If this is your first time on the channel, thank you so much for clicking on this video. I hope you enjoy it. If you are a returning viewer subscriber, thank you so much for coming back. Lovely to see you here as well. So today I wanted to talk about something that's actually been on my mind for quite a while. It is in relation to luxury rebrands, why brands do it, why maybe they're detrimental and counterintuitive to brands' potential sustainability goals, focusing primarily on Burberry as a case study for this. So that's what we're going to be talking about. If you too have been wondering why every time you walk by a Burberry store it looks different, then hopefully today will give you some of those answers. So that's what we're getting into today. If you are interested in this type of content, please stick around and keep watching. Give this video a thumbs up. Join our luxury commentary family. And without further ado, let's get into it. So I'm going to primarily be focusing on Burberry 2018 onwards because I feel like that's where most of the change has taken place. For those that are viewers of the channel that have seen me before, you would know that I worked for Burberry in 2019 briefly. So I was there while part of the changes were taking place and Riccardo Tisci's then vision was being enacted. Obviously, it looks completely different now that Daniel Lee has taken the helm. So we are going to be getting into that. I have broken down into a few different points that I want to go over and maybe some separate parts that weren't originally considered. I'll be pulling from a lot of different articles, which I'll link down below. Up until 2018, before Riccardo Tisci took over, for 20-ish years under Christopher Bailey, the Burberry logo more or less stayed the same as when it was founded in 1901. The problem, or not necessarily the problem, but the situation with more heritage brands is that they often do have to undergo a type of facelift in order to maintain relevancy, in order to re-ground themselves in the current trends and with the current demographics of their consumer base in order to stay relevant and keep going. Burberry had thus maintained its very old school, sort of old world luxury knight and horse iconography from 1901 up until 2018 when Riccardo Tisci took the helm as the creative director and decided to change things up. So up until 2018, things were quite stagnant in terms of Burberry's branding. If you walked into a store up until 2019, even up until like 2020, because they didn't do all the stores, the inside of the store, it looked very old. It was brown, lots of wood, like very dark wood, very heavy in terms of its feel with their trench coats everywhere. And it just felt like old money. But then when Riccardo Tisci took the helm, he decided to reinvigorate the brand. And this was along the lines of which was very trendy at the time around making things sort of sans serif. I think that's what the font is called, where they really pared it down and just made it very simple black and white. This was along the lines of what Eddie Slimane did at Saint Laurent, paring back the Yves Saint Laurent in cursive to just a Saint Laurent Paris, as well as what he did at Celine when he took the helm, I believe in 2017, where he got rid of the accent over the E and made it a very pared down Celine. Also, this took place at Balmain, I believe. Givenchy, they had a pretty like boring logo to begin with, but Riccardo Tisci worked with the famous graphic designer Peter Saville to bring back the Thomas Burberry iconography, recreate a whole new logo for them, as well as redesign the original graphic. When I was there, three things sort of took place. Riccardo Tisci worked to rebrand the general logo. He introduced a new logo as well that was input on basically everything, bags, t-shirts, scarf, like you name it. They were trying to make that their monogram, as well as completely changing the color scheme and redoing the general feel of the store. What he did was worked with Peter Saville to bring back Thomas Burberry, trying to get back to the roots of the house. However, there was a lot of pushback around the TB monogram. People were saying it looked like tuberculosis. People were saying that it looked like Tory Burch. So it didn't really land that well. And just generally, I don't think it looked as elevated as they wanted it to. But they put it on everything. Like the Thomas Burberry was everywhere. And even here, so the polo that I'm wearing, this was actually part of my original uniform. TB, Thomas Burberry, put there. What they also did was change the general color scheme of the stores, of the packaging, of everything to include this very, very light pistachio green, as well as change the dark wood grain to a very, very light wood grain. The problem that I found with rebrands is that they are super, super costly because these brands will then have to reenact this new brand image across every single platform, including packaging, iconography, their stores, uniforms, website. Like they will have to reinterpret this brand image everywhere through all of their channels in order for it to be a consistent brand image that consumers will see and interpret and understand as being associated with Burberry. So that's part of what they did. This took a lot of time, a lot of money to completely redo all of their stores. And I don't even think all of their stores ended up being done, shifting from this older, old world Christopher Bailey vision of Burberry to the newer 2018 version of Burberry under Riccardo Tisci, who had come from Givenchy at the time. Riccardo Tisci then ended his tenure in 2023 when Daniel Lee of Bottega Veneta took over and then decided again to completely rebrand Burberry, bringing back the Knight and Horse, but instead of using the pistachio green or the burgundy, the Burberry burgundy, he decided to introduce the Night Blue. So the Burberry blue, redo the logo again, change the font, change the stores, and change the general packaging of everything. They also decided to do their brand campaign, changing a tube station. This brought a lot of confusion to people actually, and they didn't really understand or enjoy the change. But then they've also redone stores. They've added blue into the stores. They've changed the color scheme away from pistachio green to a very, very pale, sort of like white and blue. That's what Daniel Lee did. Again, it costs a lot of money to do a complete rebrand. So I feel like Burberry is already sort of struggling, and they were struggling under the identity of Riccardo Tisci. And now again, with this rebrand, I think it landed a bit better this time as opposed to Riccardo Tisci's vision. But now everything has changed. They've had to change everything on the clothes. They've had to change everything on the stores. They've had to change everything on their website. Why do brands do it? Like, why would they go through the effort to consistently rebrand under every creative director? And it goes into a lot of things. According to Cocktail Media, brands do this for a variety of reasons. They do it to drive brand awareness and consumer engagement. So when a new creative director steps in, they will often have to carry in the legacy of the house, whatever that means. In the case of Burberry, that's the check, that's the knight, that's like the general feel of like old money England, with a new creative direction that keeps the brand relevant and on trend with like the current market. In this case, every brand is trying to chase after Gen Z in order to capture that consumer and carry the brand with them throughout their entire lives. So in 2018, a lot of brands seem to undergo this type of transformation, or at least up until 2018 they did, where it was a lot more pared down. It was a lot more minimalist in terms of nature and a lot of black and white iconography. However, there can be a lot of problems associated with rebrands, such as resource depletion. So a lot of these brands also have sustainability targets that they seem to meet, being like, we are going to be a very sustainable luxury house. However, each time they do a rebrand, they have to change the signage, the packaging, the promotional materials. It also includes wastage of the previous materials that are no longer used. And in 2018, Burberry was found out to be burning up to 28.6 million pounds of goods that were unsold because they didn't want them to get into the hands of resellers, which would then diminish the brand. So burning the old product, essentially churning it into nothing, burning money, in addition to spending all of this money on a rebrand, essentially contributes to further lack of sustainability through resource depletion that it takes to create all of this new signage, all of this new product, everything associated with this new brand. It can also encourage overconsumption in the sense that they encourage constant consumption as they undergo these rebrands. So Dior, I think, was found out for this a while ago when they were constantly updating the Dior logo on their different bags, trying different things. Like, I don't have any problem with brands trying out different things as they go about trying to figure out what identity will stick with the consumer. However, if you are constantly updating the logo on something, it can drive consumers to feel like they need to update the logo. Because say you buy something that had TB, for example, This is so far gone now at this point. Like, we're back to the night at this stage in Burberry's game that the TB is like irrelevant. The TB is so old, it's so out of fashion, it's so done that now if I was how I was shopping a while ago, maybe I would feel the need to purchase an updated version of this polo shirt because TB is out of fashion. TB is old. TB is done. TB is tired. Tired Burberry. That's what TB should stand for. Now, it can also impact the supply chain as, say, for example, in 2019, when Riccardo Tisci was really knee deep in his rebrand of Burberry, a lot of the orders and a lot of fashion cycles work on at least a 1 to 2 year lead time. So, say they had purchased all of this product with the original Burberry brand and logo in 2017, which was then going to enter stores in 2018, which is when Riccardo Tisci was undergoing the rebrand. All of that product that launched at the same time as they were announcing their rebrand is essentially old stock now. And as they incorporate this rebrand, it can cause supply chain disruptions if orders get canceled, if the brands suddenly decide that they no longer want to head in the direction of the orders that they previously placed. Now, this can impact the supply chain as sometimes these orders are well underway. And then what do they do with that? They would have to destroy the stock or figure out what to do with it after it's already been shipped. And as I mentioned before, this can also lead to contradictions in their sustainability values. If a brand is saying, we want to be XYZ sustainable by this date, or we want to be carbon neutral, essentially this can cause problems as if they're constantly rebranding. As I mentioned in the first point with resource depletion, it can cause a lot of sustainability impacts if they're going to have to then reorder all the packaging. Think about how much paper is utilized in packaging for luxury goods because consumers expect the whole gamut of things, including paper being branded, including the box being branded, including a little note being branded, a ribbon, a little hang tag, a shopping bag. All of this will have to be reordered to account for the new brand because you, as a brand, and I learned this when I was working at Burberry, there was some old stock of packaging and then there was obviously all the new stock of packaging. They looked very different, and if we were to give a customer the old branding, that wouldn't have gone well in terms of a customer experience because it would be a lot of, well, at the same time, a lot of what we did when I was working at Burberry is send the old stock to the outlets as we made way for the new stock. But then that also can lead into brands burning up to 30 billion pounds, such as in the case of Burberry, of unused sort of like dead stock because they need to clear out way for all of this new product that they're bringing in under this new brand identity. And then the last point, which is most important around the consumption patterns, is that it can lead to consumer confusion around what the brand is and where it is. Every time I walk by a Burberry store now, I'm sort of like confused as to what version of the store am I walking into and what is the identity associated with this store. Is it green? Is it blue? Is it purple? Is it black? Like, I don't know. So it can lead to brand confusion as it dilutes the original brand identity as the brand consistently wants to chase trends. And I think a lot of these creative directors, they want to input their own mark on the brand. They want to input their own sort of like key demarcation on the brand that shows that this was their impact. And they have to carry forward what was done before them, but also create a whole new brand creative identity. As that's the point of a creative director, to continue the creative direction of the house, but also input their own staple on it. And I think in the case of Burberry and why it's sort of flailing right now is the fact that the brand identity is so muddled that consumers have a hard time identifying and really understanding and tying themselves to that brand. Because when I was at Burberry 2019, they were still leaning heavily on an old consumer base. People that were Burberry legacies, that would buy the trench coats, that would buy the staples, the icons of the house. And then all of this new branding, as the company really tried to focus its attention on a new consumer market, such as Gen Z, or in the case of the Vancouver Canadian Burberrys, on an Asian Gen Z market, they really alienated a lot of those older consumers in favor of chasing newer, untapped consumers. And with that, I think they've really lost a lot of their identity in really understanding who they are. And I think if you look at brands like Hermes, Chanel, they have done very, very, very minimal rebranding, if any rebranding at all. They've sort of maintained their brand throughout. But then if you look at brands like Celine, that's done quite a few rebrands. If you look at Saint Laurent, that's done quite a few rebrands. Prada has done very little rebrands. Miu Miu has done very little rebrands. Dior has done quite a few, but Burberry has seemingly done the most. And I think that is where it's lagging behind a lot of the other houses because it doesn't have a strong brand identity anymore outside of the night at this point, which seems to be the only thing that's maintaining it. So, what do you think about brand rebrands? Do you think they really are beneficial to houses in the sense of them tapping a new market, keeping up with the trends, or could they be detrimental, as in the case of Burberry? Let me know below. Let me know what you think of this video. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye, guys.